Hi, I'm Jillian, and you are listening to The Mindset of Podcasting, where we not only talk about the technical side of launching and managing your podcast, but also about building your confidence in yourself and the power of your voice. Your business and your podcast depends so much on your mindset. So I will be diving deep into the mindset blocks and issues that we go through when starting and running your own podcast so you can feel confident in your message and in your voice. It's time to listen in and feel confident about yourself and your podcast. Hello and welcome back to the Mindset of Podcasting. Today is a solo episode all about how to launch your podcast. So if you've been wanting to launch a podcast, but you know right at this stage in your business you can't afford a podcast manager, then this episode is for you because I am going to walk you through the tech, the equipment, and setting it all up. This is the exact process that I walk my clients through. But as a podcast manager, I actually do most of this for them. But I'm going to walk you through it so that you can do it on your own. So before we get started, the number one question I get by far is about equipment. I don't know what equipment to get. I don't know what I need. I don't know which one's good, which one's bad. So let's simplify it. You do not need all this fancy equipment to start with. As you grow, you can get fancier if you want. But to start, you need a microphone and headphones. And that is it. Don't use your computer microphone. Oh, you also need a computer, but I figured that one was a given, but just in case I'll say it, you need a computer or a laptop. But don't use the microphone from your computer or laptop. Really get a microphone. Go on Amazon. They have ones that work perfectly fine for under $40. There's one, it's called the Toner microphone. I've heard really great reviews about it. A few of the guests who have been on my podcast have used it, and it's worked wonderful. And you can also go on Amazon and get headphones for under $40. So just read the reviews. You don't need anything super, super fancy. I'd also say to make yourself sound good, set up your equipment in a small room, a room that has no hardwood floors. A closet is perfect for this. That's why you'll find most people record in their closet because you have the clothes in there to kind of block the sound. But I would just, whatever room you're in, test the audio first. Make sure you're not getting an echo or anything like that. The headphones are great, especially if you're doing guest interviews. This will stop feedback, so you won't hear the guest in your audio also. So let's get started into the steps. Now that we got the equipment and what kind of room you need out of the way, how to make yourself sound good, let's get on to the steps of actually launching your podcast. So step one, you need a name for your podcast. This is the step that actually hangs up a lot of people because there are a lot of podcasts out there. So chances are maybe one of the names you're thinking about has been taken by a podcast. You definitely want to do your research. If you already have a name that you're thinking of, go into either Apple or Spotify or a podcast player and search it up and make sure there's not another podcast who has the same name as you or a name similar to you. So if you're really stuck on the name, I would start by writing a bunch of words about what your podcast is about. So what's the topic of your podcast? And maybe just write a whole bunch of words around that. So for example, if you have a podcast around self-care, you can write self-care, meditation, journaling, taking care of yourself, like all the words you can possibly think of around that. Then take that list of words and really sit with them and see which words really speak to you. And then I want you to put it away. I feel like the more we think about it, the more frustrated we get. So put it away, go on a walk, go do something else, and the name will probably come to you. My name came to me on a walk when I was walking outside. So put it away for a little bit, stop thinking about it, and see if something pops in your head. And another thing I would say is make sure that's really easy to find and type in. So an example I like to use is if you have a weight loss podcast and it's called 20 pounds to lose. Well, is your listener going to know, do they type in the word 20 or is it the numbers? Is pounds spelled out? Is it the LBS? So make it really clear for your listeners to be able to type it in. Step 2 is going to be your podcast cover art. Use Canva, plain and simple. Use Canva, go in the search, type in podcast cover art, find one that you like, and then customize it to you. Plain and simple. I'm not a graphic designer. I don't know how to get all fancy. Canva, I love, and I use it all the time. Step 3, show description. So basically, what is your podcast about? Explain what your podcast is about. Then I would give 1 or 2 sentences about who you are. And then always include a call to action. Either go to your website or Instagram or a free guide that you give. Make sure that you're keeping your listeners in mind when you write your show description. What are they going to get from this podcast? Why is it of value to them? Step 4 is your intro and your outro. So first, I just want to say you don't have to have one. You don't have to have an intro or an outro at all. That is completely up to you. There's no thing that says it does better or not. The content of your podcast is what's going to make your podcast popular or good. So intro and outro don't matter as much. But if you want to have a formal intro, I would include why they should listen, what they will learn, and who you are. Keep it super short, definitely under a minute, 30 seconds if you can. Just, this is who I am. This is the podcast. Thanks for listening. Go and listen to a few favorite podcasts that you like and find some intros that you like. Don't copy them, obviously, but get some ideas and then create your own. Your outro is usually where you'll put your call to action. So you would say, thank you for listening. Please go and rate and review and follow me on Instagram or go to my website, whatever call to action you want to have. Or you could just, like I said, do this in each episode that you talk about. At the end, when you're done recording, just do your outro, say thank you, and you can do a different one each time. You can do a different intro each time for your podcast. It's really up to you. You can make it just music, like music fades into your episode and then fades out of your episode, and that's the end. So speaking of music, that is step 5. I really like to use audiojungle.net because when you purchase the music, you get the license to it, and you really want to make sure you're not copywriting any music. So that is my favorite site to use. My one suggestion would be don't listen to a ton of music because it would be overwhelming. I would listen to 4 or 5, pick the best one from there. If it's still not sitting with you right, maybe listen to a few more, but you can always change your music later, so don't get too hung up on this step. Step 6, it's time to record your launch episodes. So your first episode will always be your story and who you are, how you came to be an expert in the area that you are, and why you decided to start your podcast. Just tell your life story. And then I usually start with either 3 or 4 episodes with a launch. This will help increase download numbers when you first launch. Episode 2, if you're doing guest episodes, would be a guest, or it could be the main topic of what your podcast is about. But I would start with 3 or 4 episodes to begin with. Step 7. So you're going to want to edit and then combine your music with your intro and outro. I use Audacity for this. In the show notes, I will link a video where I give you a very basic tutorial of editing in Audacity. So you can go look at that. If you are not comfortable with editing, you can always outsource that. Step 8 is to write the episode description. This is 2 to 3 sentences about what the episode is about. Make sure you include all your links and resources and have a call to action. Step 9 is you're going to upload and schedule into your podcast host. There are a ton of podcast hosts. If you're not sure which one to go with, I'm going to tell you the most popular ones. There are Libsyn, Buzzsprout, Anchor, and then I use Castos. I really like Castos because they have a private podcast option, but the other ones are great too. Anchor is free. It's the only free option, so you can look into that. But once you sign up for the podcast host that you choose, it will walk you through the entire setup and show you how to upload your episodes. There are tutorial videos all over for whatever podcast host you decide to use. But this is where your podcast will live and then how you will submit it to other podcasts. So after you get your host all set up and you publish your first episode, then you can distribute it to Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, all the places. And each podcast host has a step-by-step instructions on how to do that. And then the last step is celebrate and announce that your podcast is live. Yay, you did it. So once you do all these steps and you get it uploaded and out to the world, people can listen. So I know I made that super quick and it sounds super easy just by me talking about it, but it is some work on your end. And if you ever have any questions, please reach out to me. I love to answer questions and just help anybody that I can. So I will definitely help you with any questions that you have. Okay, so let's jump into my little ending segment. You know how I ask my guests a few questions at the end of their interview. So I just like to give you an update on what's going on with me. So My podcast tip of the week. Since we're talking about launches, you need to give yourself 2 weeks before you launch to release your episodes so that Apple can pick them up. So Apple likes to take their time. It can be anywhere from a few hours to 14 days to have Apple pick up your podcast. So if you plan to launch on like the 14th, I would definitely have your episodes released by the 1st and submitted your podcast to Apple by the 1st so that they have time to pick it up. So what is going on in my business? I am growing, which I'm super excited about. I'm so blessed that people are trusting me with their podcast, and I get to help so many women get their message out to the world. So I actually hired my first team member to help me out. She is an editor, and she is helping me with some of the editing so I can take some of the things off my plate and focus more on my clients. So I'm super excited about that. It's a big step to hire your first team member. And what is going on in my life? Well, our coffee shop that me and my husband own is also expanding, and we have had to hire more employees, which is fun and a little scary. But we are so thankful for our community. They are amazing. And we've actually hired one so far, and we're in the process of hiring another one. So we're just so blessed that the community has supported us so much, especially during these times. So you can go check out our coffee shop on Instagram. It's at Bell's Coffee, BELLSCOFFEE. So thank you so much for listening. Again, if you have any questions about launching or podcast questions in general, reach out to me. I am on Instagram at Jillian Grover Podcasting, or you can email me at Jillian@JillianGrover.com. And again, please rate and review so we can get up higher in the listings. This is how people find us in search results. So go to whatever platform you listen to the podcast and rate and review. And I will talk with you next week. Thank you so much for listening. Is your goal to have your own podcast? This has been a vision of yours for a while, but you don't know where to begin. The Podcast Launch Protocol will walk you through every step of successfully launching your podcast and getting your message out to the world. By the end of this program, you will have a podcast ready to be released and listened to by your audience. The course is self-paced and mostly all audio, so you can listen to it on your favorite podcast app, wherever you are and on the go. The Podcast Launch Protocol will show how to record, edit, write show notes, upload to all the podcast platforms, and so much more. There's also a private Facebook group where you can get all your questions answered by me. If you're ready to start your podcast and get your message out to the world, then go to JillianGrover.com/podcast protocol to learn more.